Hello and welcome to Microsoft Dynamics 365 Unified Service Desk for Customer Service. My name is Derek Borman and I will be your instructor. When we're talking about Unified Service Desk, we're really looking at contact centers or call centers or any type of environment really where you have other line of business applications that you want to integrate with your Dynamics 365 implementation. Maybe you have multiple customers that you want to be able to interact with at any one given time. Unified Service Desk is really the framework that allows you to build these custom applications or this custom interface that allows you to not only work with Dynamics 365 information, but also pull across other line of business applications. And so in this course, we're really going to introduce you to everything involved with Dynamics 365 Unified Service Desk. We're first going to just take a look at kind of an overview or a landscape of what call centers deal with on a day-to-day basis and why Unified Service Desk is a nice solution to bring into the mix. So what are some of the challenges that we run into when we start talking about call center things? Things like staffing levels and budgets and technology and disparate systems all trying to talk together to work together towards kind of a common task. So we're going to talk a little bit about what that process looks like and set the stage for how Unified Service Desk for Dynamics 365 can fill a lot of those gaps and work through those items. We're also going to take you in and show you how to set up and install the application. One thing that's different with Unified Service Desk for Dynamics 365 is the fact that it's actually a desktop application. And the desktop application will connect directly to a Dynamics 365 instance. But all of your configuration, so the setup in regards to what information is going to be displayed inside the application to your users, actually takes place within Dynamics 365. So we're going to show you how to install the client on your local machines, how to connect to your Dynamics 365 instance, how to install the Unified Service Desk solution into your environment, and then what the basic configuration looks like. What are some of the core elements that make up a Unified Service Desk implementation? Then we're going to take in and start talking through some of the core elements or the foundational elements for Unified Service Desk. We're going to talk a lot about hosted controls and what is a hosted control and how do hosted controls show up inside USD. What are some of the different avenues that you have for creating them or using pre-existing ones that are out there? And what are some of the ones that you have to have kind of just in every environment? And what are some of the other ones that you can kind of bring in as you're moving forward? We're going to talk a little bit about actions and action calls, and those are really the items that are going to do something within the application. So if I want to open up a specific window or I want to open up a specific Dynamics 365 page, the actions and the action calls are what are going to constitute how that is actually opened up and translated inside the system. We're also going to talk a little bit about different toolbars and events and how you can associate different toolbars with different items that you might run into as part of the application, and look at how different events such as pages loading and pages closing are all going to fit into what people are doing inside the application. We're going to talk about navigation rules and controlling how things show up or present themselves in the application. If you think about how Dynamics 365 works, everything kind of opens up in line. Well, one of the nice things about USD is USD has things that are like sessions, where you can open up different calls in different sessions, and now you can transfer things into different tabs as part of those sessions. And we're going to show you how navigation rules really control how things open up inside the application. We're going to introduce you to the debugger and show you how to use the debugger to do things like understand, if action calls are doing what they're supposed to be doing, how to test different scriptlets, but more importantly, we're going to show you how to view parameters in regards to what is currently loaded into the USD interface, so you can use those items to better constitute and personalize kind of the in-context experience in regards to how Unified Service Desk works as a whole. And then the final module, we're going to talk a little bit about kind of bringing everything together and how all these different elements and items that we've talked about all kind of work together. But we also want to talk about where you go from here. The goal of this course is to really introduce you to the core concepts and the core fundamental elements that are in every USD implementation that you'll be doing. But from there, how you want to customize and tailor the application to bring in things like other line of business applications, maybe integrate with a phone system, maybe customize the layout. These are all things that have the ability to do that. So we also want to talk about, what are the next steps and where might you need developers to really start to bring this to the forefront so you can customize this solution to fit your specific needs. In this first module, we want to focus less on the actual Unified Service Desk solution and more on why the Unified Service Desk solution is beneficial to organizations. And we want to talk real specifically about contact centers or call centers and why this particular solution fits very well into those environments. And so we're going to talk about quite a few different things in regards to contact centers as a whole. The first thing that we're going to do is we're just going to look at, what are some of the different challenges? What are some of the things that people that work in contact centers deal with on a day-to-day basis? And how can those hinder their productivity from an application perspective? We're going to talk a little bit about staffing requirements. We're going to talk a little bit about training and budgeting. We're going to talk a little bit about, different systems all having to interface together. These are all key challenges that contact centers deal with on a day-to-day basis. And this is where you can run into data slippage. And this is where you can run into situations where data can be entered wrong, it can be put in wrong, and now you can ultimately start to affect the experience that your customers are having when they start working with your agents. Another key factor that really plays into that is multiple channels. We live in a kind of a day and age where we're not just calling in to help desk anymore. We might submit case requests via social media. We might submit case requests, just by emailing somebody, or we might run into situations where we submit them through a portal or something to that nature. And so we're at in the day and age now where people aren't necessarily just calling in anymore. And that really does produce kind of a unique subset of challenges in and among itself. And so we're going to look at how those different channels affect different items. And we're also going to look at kind of contact center KPIs. What's important to a contact center and what are things that they measure, average case resolution time and average call handle time. These are all things that fit in and drive productivity, they drive revenue, they drive decisions that people running these contact centers have to make on a day-to-day basis. And then finally, we're going to look at Unified Service Desk and what is Unified Service Desk and how does Unified Service Desk differ from our typical Dynamics 365 deployments, but how does it also interact with these things that we've looked at? How does it look at the call center scenarios? How does it meet some of these measurables that we're working through? And so this is really more about just understanding the landscape and then moving forward with how Unified Service Desk as a product can help address many of those different challenges. Let's first take a step back and just talk about call centers or contact centers in general. When we talk about contact centers or call centers and we look at day-to-day aspects of what they do, we really can bundle the challenges that they face into three separate kind of containers. Monetary type situations where we talk about how much things are costing and those kind of different situations. People, when we get into things like staffing and turnover and training and outsourcing to other environments. And then we also talk a little bit about just the overall environment itself. What is the items that they're working with? Business processes. How are we interfacing with other applications? These are three key elements that every contact center deals with, particularly from a challenge perspective. And so let's look at each one of these in a little bit more detail. Let's first examine kind of the monetary situation. One of the key things that they have to look at is doing more with less. Contact centers are always expecting everybody in their organization to do whatever they can with the least amount of resources, because a lot of times they look at these contact centers more as a cost center. When we talk about how we're going to staff these different situations, how much does it cost for us as an organization to handle each call that's coming into these individual environments, we're not necessarily driving revenue. When you start talking about contact centers, we're typically eating up revenue and resources. And so because of that, they are always not necessarily willing to throw as much resources into a contact center in regards to updated software and current versions of things, because a lot of times those run into situations where they're not going to provide them everything that they need. And so we want to look at how can we not only maintain that effective customer service, but how can we increase the value? Are there opportunities when people are calling into these contact centers where we can can actually go out and cross-sell or upsell or create opportunities based upon these cases, and now churn these cost centers or these contact centers more into revenue generating opportunities where we can offset some of the staffing costs and some of the items that are associated with it. Another key aspect that we talked a little bit about is people. Contact centers really run into situations where they have a totally unique subset of challenges. It's not always about just hiring the right people. Sometimes it's about making sure that you have the right people on staff at the right times. Contact centers' call volumes are never really consistent. They might have higher call volumes on the weekends. They might have higher call volumes during specific times of the year. Maybe they're running a new marketing promotion and now they're going to expect kind of a spike in calls based upon those individual situations. And so one of the things that we always try to do from a staffing perspective is optimize staffing. Make sure that we have the right staff at the right time, so we don't have people just sitting there doing nothing on times when we don't have a lot of calls coming in. But at the same point in time, when we do have a lot of calls coming in, we don't have customers that are sitting on hold for 15-20 minutes. How do we optimize that? And how do we make sure that our agents that are actually handling these calls have the information that's associated with them? Training is one of the key aspects. I worked in a call center for many, many years, and one of the issues that we had was making sure that we had the right training materials to get people on board as quickly as possible so they could do their core job. The problems that we ran into with that was, things were always changing, but at the same point in time, we always had a lot of agent turnover. We would have in some situations, we'd have training classes where we'd have 20 people come in, and by the end of the training class, we might only have 10 people that actually hit the floor, and then of those 10 people, we might only have 5 of those that stuck with us for any period of time. And that gets very expensive when you're pumping all this money into training people who are not necessarily going to stay there for the long haul. So how can we optimize that training experience and try to get people onto the floor as quickly as possible, but then constantly continue to train those and invest in the people that are sticking with us for long periods of time? And understanding that, once we get the people out on the floor, a lot of times they have to multitask. They have to work in 4 or 5 different applications at the same time. So if we can streamline that from a consistency standpoint, that really makes things a lot easier. And now you really get into situations as well where companies are outsourcing people. And now you might have people or companies that are doing work on your behalf that are also working for other companies. And they don't necessarily have that personal buy-in to your methodology and the way that you do things. And so outsourcing can really bring in its own unique challenges where people aren't necessarily as invested as somebody who works for you directly. And so it's about understanding, how we're going to onboard people and get people out into the call center as quickly as possible so they're maintaining our message. And then finally, we start talking about the environment itself. If you think about a typical call center, most of the applications that you're working with or most of the people that you're working with might have 4 or 5 different applications that they have to interface during the case of a call. They might have to work with your CRM system. They might have to work with your ERP system. There might be a system that is custom homegrown based upon the type of situation that you're working with. And when you start talking about all of these different line of business applications, typically they don't talk to each other. And so now there's a lot of copying and pasting that has to take place between these different interfaces. And when you start talking about copying and pasting across these different interfaces, now you run into situations where, I might paste something into the wrong screen, or I might pull information from the wrong application, and now we run into data quality issues. And those are things that also have to really be addressed. And so these are all areas that contact centers as a whole deal with every single day. And the challenge is to find the nice mix that is going to help meet all of those. It's going to help us quickly onboard and get our people up to staff and up on the floor as quickly as possible with the right information. Make sure that they have the right procedures in place to be able to interface with all the applications that they need to interface with on a regular basis, and do all that in a cost-effective situation where we can maximize their productivity with minimal budget costs, but at the same point in time increase the potential revenue that they're bringing in for our organization as a whole. As we talked about at the top of the module, a call center today is very different than a call center even 5-10 years ago. A call center today is multiple channels of interaction. We're not just coming in via a phone anymore. Our customers want us to provide different ways to interface above and beyond just the phone. They want to use all the technology that's easiest and most convenient for them to use. So as a result of that, a lot of the agents today expect to not take just phone calls, but they're going to take emails. They're going to look at chats. They're going to look at, maybe people initiating things through an application. Maybe there's going to be situations where they're going to come in via social media. You start even looking at things like, Internet of Things and IoT. Those types of situations are also changing how cases are engaged. You might have a smart device that reports some type of problem. That problem now feeds into, your CRM or your Dynamics 365 system, which generates some type of alert, which now creates a case that you have to open up and handle inside that situation. And so these are all channels that now people are starting to address. And that's a challenge that contact centers look at. How are we going to handle all these different aspects of what's coming into play? And how are we going to make sure that we're using the right channels for our customer base? We also don't want to make sure that we're just bringing channels into the mix because people think we should. If they're not ways that our customers want to interact with us, maybe we better focus on different avenues. And so that's also a challenge that you have to look at is what are the channels that we want to look at and focus on from our organization to make sure that people have the right information at the right time. Contact centers or call centers are also unique in the fact that they use different key performance indicators than maybe you might measure other aspects of your business. When we start talking about working with contact centers, a lot of the things that we're talking about are things like call metrics and understanding, how quickly and how effectively we are actually going in and servicing customers. And so on this slide, we want to talk just a little bit about some of the key performance indicators that are specific or unique to a contact center environment. And the first situation would be things like your service level. And so this is a situation where we start talking about what is the percentage of contacts that are answered within a specific time frame. So we promise a specific level of service to our customers. We're going to get back to you in 15 minutes, or we're going to get back to you in an hour. We're going to resolve things, within, one business day or whatever that situation is. And so when we start talking about service levels, that's really what we're talking about is, what is the percentage of the people that we are getting back to and we are meeting during that specific situation of time. When we start having higher levels of service levels, a lot of times that means that we have more people interacting with people, and because of that we might be able to increase costs and decrease productivity. It's kind of a trade-off because a lot of times if you have a higher level of service, you are running into situations where your customers are going to be happier within that situation, but because I'm spending more time and I'm keeping those customers happy, now I run into situations where I can't handle as many calls. And that's where that understanding staffing requirements can also come into play as we're working forward. We also talk a little bit about abandonment rate. That's a critical aspect of what people do from inside an organization. When a call comes in, you might sit on hold for a certain period of time. What is the percentage of the calls that we have in our environment that are actually getting abandoned or dropped before they get to the service technician? That can help us also drive things like staffing and understanding what we need to work with from that particular perspective. After the abandon rate, we start talking about things like average handle time for calls and average after work time. When we talk about average handle time from a call, that's really start to finish. How much time are our representatives spending on that call from the moment they work through it till the end? What is the amount of time that they're working through that? Once they disconnect from the customer and now they're finishing up that call or they're doing kind of their call wrap up, what is their after call work time? How much time are they spending within those situations? Those are two different kind of key elements that we have the ability to really kind of go in and start saving money. If we can give people, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds during those specific situations just by simply automating a task here or there, we could ultimately save a contact center millions and millions of dollars over the course of a year when you think about the call volume that they would be working at. We also talk a little bit about the customer satisfaction rating, and this is understanding, how happy our customers are. If we send out surveys to that situation and we start understanding, on scales of 1 to 5, what percentage of our customers are actually satisfied with the level of service that we're providing? Are there key areas inside our organization that we would have the opportunity to better serve our customers on? And that's a key area that companies spend a lot of time and a lot of effort trying to focus on. First call resolution. This is also ultimately the main goal of any contact center environment that you're working with. When somebody calls into my call center, I want to resolve that call as quickly as possible. And if I can get everything I need to get accomplished on that first contact point, the customer calls in, they talk to the agent identifies their problem, they see a resolution, they implement a resolution, we move on. The more times that customer has to come back into that environment, the more likely they are that their customer satisfaction rating is going to fall. And so this is also a situation where can we do things like embed knowledge into our environment to make it easier for us to understand specifically what's happening inside the context of the application. And then finally, we talk about utilization. What are our utilization statistics? How many people are actually calling into the environment? What is the percentage of time that our agents are actually on the phone, taking calls or handling emails while they're scheduled to do so? The more we have, the more people are working with this utilization, the more productive your agents are. It also can have an impact on how happy they are, because if we're just pushing people through the sake of pushing people through, that runs into an issue as well. So I would encourage you as you work through this course to think about, how these decisions that you're going to make in regards to these hosted controls and these action calls and what screens you're going to populate inside the application are going to fit into these different levels of service or these different KPIs, because that's ultimately going to help drive the decisions that you make when you're moving forward. So what exactly is Unified Service Desk, or USD? At its simplest baseline situation, USD is a framework. It's a configuration-based framework that allows you as an organization to go out and build functional agent applications that your people inside your contact center can consume. Now, it's different than you would think of from a Dynamics 365 standpoint, in the fact that you are actually building a desktop application that is customized and tailored to your specific environment. So that's one of the first things that's very different, is it is a desktop application. What's nice about this desktop application is, depending upon how you build it, you really can achieve that entire 360-degree view of customers. Now, let's talk a little bit about how it does that. So first and foremost, it's built on CRM, or it's built on your Dynamics 365 organization. So it connects directly to that environment. All of the configuration-based elements that you're going to do, you're going to configure inside Dynamics 365. So the thing that's nice about that is you're using a familiar interface to be able to configure and build these solutions that you can push out into your individual environments. Because it's connected to your Dynamics 365 in implementation, it is a secure deployment, because now you're using your Dynamics 365 security roles to authenticate users to your environment. So it uses the same security model that you would use in a Dynamics 365 environment. What's nice about this is it also allows you to capture within that particular application the context of the records that you're working with. So when I open up an account, the application understands that I'm working with ABC Company, and it looks at all of the information inside ABC Company, and it keeps track of that. So when I go in and connect to like another line of business application, maybe like an accounting application or a third-party application or a website or something like that, it allows me to pass certain pieces of information from that Dynamics 365 record over into this third-party application. And a good example of that would be, maybe you're doing something like an environmental impact agency that you're working through. And so when somebody opens up a property that you're storing inside Dynamics 365, there's a website that you go into generally, and you put in the address of the location, and then you push the submit button, and you open up a report that tells you if there's been any environmental impact reports reported for this property. What Unified Service Desk helps us to do is to automate that process. process. So it understands that this is the address of the property that we want to input into this third-party application, and it understands that by hitting the submit button, it's going to bring those results into your page. So Unified Service Desk can actually take that information from CRM, feed it into that third-party application, automate the process of pushing the submit button, and so when you click over into that new application, all that information is already there. The agent doesn't have to copy and paste that information together. And that's really where Unified Service Desk fits into the mix. It also gives you the capabilities to work with multiple sessions. So if you think about how a typical contact center agent's going to work, they're not going to service just one customer at a time. They're going to have 5 or 6 different cases open at any given time. The application allows us to actually have sessions open in multiple situations. So I can very easily switch back and forth into those environments. I also have the capabilities to integrate with phone systems. So if I want to do screen pops when somebody calls into the application, these are all different mechanisms that from within the USD interface, you would have the capabilities to build. Now again, it doesn't do that all out of the box. It is a configuration-based framework where you have to go in and kind of define how you want that experience to be brought in. But because you have Unified Service Desk, now you have the capabilities to allow agents to be able to access customer information from a unified base scenario. They have one central repository where they can access multiple lines of business applications from wherever they want to work with from those types of situations. They have, like we mentioned, session management capabilities where they can go in and they can work in multiple sessions, and it will keep the context of each one of those sessions separate. So when I open up an account, and then from that account I open up a case, and then I browse over into the knowledge base, and then I need to work with a different customer, when I open up that new customer, all of those tabs and all of that contextual information that was associated with that separate customer stays over in that session. And now I'm working in a completely independent session for this customer. So now your agents have the ability to very quickly switch back and forth. And because we're working in an environment where people are interacting with people on large scales, the other thing that's nice about Unified Service Desk is it does allow you to do things like agent scripts and actually provide guidance to them. And as I mentioned, integrate with phone applications. So if you want to do screen pops, it gives you the capabilities to be able to do that as well. So it provides you with multiple ways of being able to address common problems that are in that area. And probably the biggest advantage is the fact that it really is configured from within Dynamics 365, and we'll show you that as we move forward. Now, the reason I want to show you this screen is because it is different, and I've mentioned this a couple of different times, but when you think about how people interact with Dynamics 365 today, there's a few different ways that they can do that. There's the Outlook client, where they install the Outlook client into their application, and then they work with kind of offline support, and they integrate with their contacts and their appointments. There's the new kind of apps that you can use where you can connect to Outlook and use some of those things. There's also the mobile client, so you can go into mobile application and you can do things like your task-based experience. You can work with offline information. You have the capabilities to connect to CRM. You also have your web client where you can go in and you can just access things via your web interface. Those are all still at the core aspects of what they're using. They're still, each serving a specific purpose. Unified Service Desk adds on that situation. It's a desktop application framework that now gives you the ability to not only do all the same types of things that you would be able to do inside the applications, minus the offline support. It gives you the capabilities now to work with sessions. It gives you the capabilities to integrate third-party applications without actually having to do direct database connections. And it gives you the capabilities to bring in those CTI integrations all from one central repository that you can work with inside the application. And that's really where Unified Service Desk kind of works. Now let's talk a little bit about how it all fits together. So if you think about Unified or USD, it builds in layers. So it all starts kind of at a Dynamics 365 level. This is where you have your agent guidance. This is where you have things like your workflows, your dialogues, the typical things that you're going to use inside a Dynamics 365 implementation. This is where you might build your core framework around your service module. And this is what's going to have your cases and your activity management and your queues and your baseline reporting. So all of that information already exists today inside Dynamics 365. USD uses what's called the User Interface Integration, or UII framework. And so what this UII framework really provides you is the ability to work with legacy applications, so to provide a mechanism to be able to host legacy applications inside the context of what it is that you're trying to do. It also provides you with the session management framework. And so this gives you the actual key capabilities to be able to go out and open up multiple sessions inside the application. And it also provides that framework for your integration with your phone systems. Now, USD is built on top of that UII integration framework. And by implementing USD, this is where you now have the capabilities to have that integrated desktop that has session management specific to Dynamics 365 pages. It allows you to open up multiple contacts or multiple accounts in individualized sessions. It allows you to go in and configure the application to fit your specific needs so people can open information up the way that they want to. And it also gives you a mechanism to streamline deployment. You build the customizations, you configure the application inside Dynamics 365, and once it's configured, the next time people open up their application, they will see those customizations directly there inside the app. And that's really what we want to focus on for the remainder of this course, is how are we going to build that unified solution using the Unified Service Desk application itself. So before we dive in and break down all the individual configuration pieces that you have from a USD perspective, let's just kind of take a look at where USD's value proposition sits and where it really fits in from a call center perspective. So what you see here is the Unified Service Desk using the sample data package. And what's nice about this is it opens up directly to your dashboard. So from a customer service perspective, if I was going to look at this, I go right into my dashboard that I would normally want it to work with and see kind of what's happening. Now, up at the top, I can see that I have a toolbar that runs across the top that has a variety of different commands that I can work with. And this is completely configurable. And as we move through the application, we'll show you a little bit on how to configure what information works through this toolbar as well. And then if I move over to the side, I also have additional situations where I can open up troubleshooting tools, like the debugger, which is a great utility to just kind of get an idea as to what's happening inside the application. But I also could do things like if I wanted to visually change the theme to set things apart a little bit and just make things look a little bit different, I could do that. But in this case, let's just go ahead and move through the navigation a little bit. So I'm going to go through and click on search. And you'll see that this is going to open up my global search utility. And within this, I have several different items that I can search. I can search specifically cases, activities, and queues, but I can also use just the global search to search through any specific entity or item that I want to. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and just do a search for AdventureWorks. And you'll see that this will go out and this will do that multi-entity search. So I can see that I have one account that meets the criteria for Adventure, I have one contact, and I have one lead. So I can open up any one of these particular items inside the application. I'm going to go ahead and just open up AdventureWorks. And when this opens up inside the application, this is now going to open up a brand new session. And we'll talk quite a bit about sessions as we move through, but a couple things to kind of draw your attention to as it opens up. The first thing that you'll notice is it names the session in the context of the account that we're currently working with. So I have AdventureWorks open, and it opens up a brand new session for AdventureWorks. If I were to go ahead and open up or do another search, which I'm going to go ahead and do, we'll go ahead and click on search. And in this case, I'm going to go ahead and search for another one. This time, why don't we go ahead and search for we'll open up Blue Yonder Airlines. What I want to draw your attention to here is now I have two sessions open. I have one session for AdventureWorks Cycles and I have one for Blue Yonder Airlines. And as I click on the individual sessions, one of the key things that you'll notice is over here on the side. This is what's called session overview lines, and this is going to give me specific information about this particular customer. So it's going to tell me things like who they are, the email address, and the phone number. And what's nice about this is as I navigate through this application and I open up specific pieces of this application, it's going to keep that information in context. So even though I'm opening up another contact inside this particular option, it still is showing me AdventureWorks cycles with the email address and the phone number. So this is one of those configurable elements that from within inside the application, you can define exactly what you want to display here. So as people are navigating through this, they would have the capabilities to see exactly what's kind of happening within the context of what they're doing. Now within here, I can use my back arrows and I can kind of back up, and this allows me to move back and forward. So this is again another toolbar that is working within the context of this particular session. As I click on things like associated contacts and associated cases, it's going to open this information up down in this notes control. So again, I keep everything in the context of what it is that I'm working with, and I can see the subsequent information from within here. So if I wanted to modify Nancy Anderson, I could do that. Now what's nice about that is as I click on Nancy Anderson and it pops up my information from that situation, it now looks and it notices that she is a silver customer and asks me if I want to upsell her basically to a different support contract. And this is a pop-up window that I can work with in the context of the item that I'm going through. The other thing that's nice about this is as I've looked at this particular information for Nancy, it also shows me some additional items and opens up her case inside here. But now I can switch between these different options. So I have different tab options that I can switch through, all within the context of this particular situation. Same thing where if I wanted to make notes, I could go into notes and I could just adjust and make notes in regards to the item that I'm working with. So this is that 360-degree view that the Unified Service Desk package is going to provide to us. The other thing that's nice about this is now I have my call script. So now I can go ahead and if I wanted to click on this, I can supply different types of sessions or different types of scripts based upon what it is that I want to accomplish. So in here I have my welcome to account session because I happen to be on an account record. As I navigate through different things, or if I were to initiate this from a contact, this script would change and I would have different scripts based upon what specific record I initially opened up as I'm going through these individual items. So this now gives me the capabilities to maybe identify specific pieces of this, and I can mark specific items off. So as I click on Identify Contact, it opens up Nancy's option and I can click on whatever I wanted to do to navigate through this. If I wanted to open up a new service request, I could click on New Service Request, and now it opens up an option to create a new case. And it's going to open up a case and it's going to create a brand new case within the context of the record that I have open. If for some reason I am now waiting for Nancy as I'm going through this case concept, I could now come over into here into Blue Yonder Airlines and I could now service a completely different customer. And each one of these items are going to keep these specific things open as I'm going through these. And I also have the ability within here to do a knowledge search. So if I've enabled knowledge search functionality, I could now start searching through specific knowledge base articles and I could open that information up. Now this is all out of the box. So this is just if you choose the sample solutions, this is what you're going to see from within here. The other thing that's nice with this is I would have the capabilities if I wanted to extend this functionality, which we'll talk a little bit more towards the end of the course. I could go in and create my own kind of custom elements that I wanted to open up inside here and then configure that information to work however I wanted to. If I ever wanted to close this information down, I could close this information down. It closes that particular session altogether, all the tabs, everything associated with it, and now just constitutes the other particular item that I wanted to work with. Now in here, I could also go into applications. I could click on locate the customer. And what this is actually going to do is this is going to open up a Bing Map control. So this is actually going to take me right out into Bing Maps, and it's going to allow me to see their specific address, and then I can see if there's information nearby to them. Maybe I needed to dispatch somebody out into their particular area. This would now give me the capabilities to be able to do that. But again, while I'm looking at this particular item, I now have my incident that I could go back into, I have my contact that I could go back into, and I also have the account record. So all of these individual tabs stay within the context of the session, which ideally, if you're working in a customer service environment, this is exactly what you want to see, is you want to have all that information at your disposal when you're working through it. Now, as you saw, as we clicked on different things, different things opened up. Sometimes it opened up in a new tab, sometimes it just opened up right on top of what you were working with. Those are some of the other key elements that we're going to talk about as we go through the course. But I think what's nice to see here is that entire look in the context as to what you're doing. Everything opens up directly related to whatever you're trying to work with at that specific moment, and now gives you the capabilities to move forward. And so now, as we go through the remainder of the course, we're going to break down a lot of these individual components, and we're going to show you exactly how we got this functionality to work as we were moving forward. So as you can see, there's a lot of considerations that you have to think about before you deploy and implement Unified Service Desk. It is a desktop application, so there's those decisions that have to be made, which we'll talk quite a bit about in the next module. But it's also understanding, what is important to your specific organization. What are the things that are going to drive the decisions that we've made as we're moving forward? And things to consider are, each contact center today has a variety of different challenges that they need to work with. This range from staffing problems that they're running into, training, cost management, line of business applications that really don't have a common data model in place that determine how you're going to talk to each one of those individual items, and just overall deployment situations that they're looking at. The other thing to remember is, a lot of your agents today are going to work with, and particularly in a call center environment, the systems are disparate. The systems are not necessarily connected cleanly. And so how are you going to pass that data back and forth? And how do we work with keeping the information consistent across those applications? And that's a huge challenge. And so the Unified Service Desk solution gives you that centralized point. It gives you the capabilities to be able to kind of bridge the gap between what it is that you want to accomplish inside Dynamics 365, along with being able to incorporate those different line of business applications into whatever it is that you want to do, so you can move forward and start building cost-effective solutions for your contact center.